Okay, welcome to Junkyard Restoration's ranked listing, where I'm going to go ahead and bring up the rules for you, how this is going to work. This is the rules for how we're going to rank them. I have listed out 552 model and generations of cars that I've personally driven, and we're going to go through and we're going to rank them 5 at a time per episode. So I have everything set up here, and we're going to get to work. Now, as typical for me, I'm experiencing audio issues, so I am using my AirPod knockoffs here to try and record my voice for this, so I'll try to work on that in the future, but I always have audio problems with every video that I make. So, let's get into this. We have our list here. 552 cars that I have driven personally, and I went ahead and got ourselves a random number generator. So let's go ahead and find out what the very first car on our list is going to be, and let's go ahead and rank it. $522. Alright, let's check out our list. Car number 522 and first one to get ranked in our list is the Toyota Sequoia first generation. Let's go ahead and get that baby highlighted in yellow so we know that we've seen it before. Alright, so for those not in the know, let's head over to Wikipedia and check it out. Toyota Sequoia. Now we're only specifically worried about the first generation here, the XK30. This is the one that I've driven. I drove one with an iForce V8. Pretty good little truck, I think. So let's go ahead and look at our listing. Let's get it ranked. So here's how it all works. Okay, here's how the whole game, the whole gambit comes together. We're going to take our highest horsepower and lowest horsepower. We're going to put those in there, 0 to 60, high and low. We're going to do rarity, handling, interior, exterior, transmission options, and X Factor bonus. That's the fun one you'll see in a moment. Okay, so let's go ahead and bring up the actual listings here. This is our things. As you can see, there's empty right now. We have no cars on the list. Okay, so let's get to work. So now we have some of our basic information put in here. We have the car number, we have the year of manufacture, the make, the model, what generation it is, the chassis code, confidence. 1 to 3 is the ranking here. 1 means I've only driven it 1 or 2 times, don't really remember it that well. I could use more time with the car and that could change its ranking further on. 2 means I've driven them several times, I have experience with these cars, and I feel pretty confident in how I feel about them. 3 is the top level. I've either owned them, I have friends that have owned them, I've spent many time, or I should say I've spent a lot of time behind the wheel of these cars, at least several hours or a couple hundred miles, and I feel very confident on speaking about how they are. And lastly, the things we haven't put in, we skip all that, and here's my guess. My guess score is 510. That's what I think it's going to be. I think it's going to be just a little above middle of the pack. Let's see. Let's dive into actually ranking this thing. Okay, so first we're going to start with our horsepower ranking. So as a reminder of how this little gambit works, you're going to take the highest stated horsepower and the lowest, and you're going to put them in the block divided by 10. So that's how we're going to get our scores, because it's out of 100 here. So we're looking for a perfect score would be like Dodge Demon level 1000 horsepower. So we're not going to get that out of a Toyota Sequoia, but that's okay because it can make it up on other things. Okay, so we're going to bring back up our Wikipedia page. Let's see here. We have a couple different options here, both the 4.7 liter. That would be the iForce V8. So our optional horsepowers are right here. So we're going to take a look at those. We have 240 is our lowest, 282 is our highest. So we're going to go ahead and put those things in there. So power high, 282 divided by 10 is 28.2. And lowest was 240 horsepower right here. Okay, so let's put that in there. That's going to be 24 points for you there, Sequoia. Alright, so 0 to 60 is going to get a little bit more convoluted because we have to try to find our 0 to 60s. I use, I believe it's 0 to 60. 0 to 60 times, should be this website here. Okay, and we're going to go to Toyota. And we're going to be scrolling. It's in alphabetical order all the way down to S for the Sequoia. Oh, come on, baby. There we are. The Toyota Sequoia. We're going to be looking at the very early ones here. So we have a couple different options. We're looking for the 2007, remember? So we have the SR5 and the Limited. This should be the difference between the two different engine options. Now keep in mind that both the iForce V8, so they're not very different at all. So we're going to have an 8.9 and a 9.1. So the way that little game works here, for that score, is you're going to take that number and you're going to subtract that number from 20 and multiply it by 5, which should give you a decent number in the range of 100 points. So, alrighty. Okay, so now that we have that in there, next is rarity. Now this is going to become a little bit more difficult too. This is where we're going to have to do a little bit of research, try to find out where we are on this thing. Okay, so after some sleuthing on the internet, I can already tell you I've run some of these last production years, so the earliest that this website carries, and we're already busting our budget pretty close there, and we're still missing the earlier years. So the way that the scoring works for this particular part of the sheet is rarity. You start with 100 and you subtract 1 point for every 1,000 cars produced during that generation. This gives kind of a point bonus to cars being extremely rare, but considering these are cars that I've personally driven, most of them are never ever, I could tell you none of them are going to get full points, but most of them are going to get almost no points, if no points, and that's because these are regular cars, and that's okay. Regular cars are cool too. So, but this one we're going to give it a 0. 0 points on rarity. Sequoias are not rare vehicles. There's lots of them around, especially those early generations. You still see them around all of the time. Handling. Now, handling, interior and exterior are entirely subjective to my own opinion and nothing more. There's no metric I'm using here other than my own opinion. Now, I would say for the Sequoia, it's big. It's unwieldy. It's full truck frame, so it doesn't really handle particularly well in the scheme of vehicles. For trucks that size, I'd say it's quite good, but overall, I'm going to go ahead and give it a pretty low score here. It's not a very good handling vehicle, so I'm going to go ahead and give it, I'm going to say a 20. I'm going to say pretty good for a truck, but overall not that great. Although, I wouldn't mind if I had to take it down a mountain pass. I wouldn't feel like it's going to kill me, as long as it was in good shape, of course. Now, interior, Toyota, you know, they kind of struggle here with the interiors on most of these bigger vehicles. Okay, so we have some pictures here of the interiors of these Sequoias. Now, Toyota kind of struggles with their truck department, I think, in interior. The quality, of course, is quite good. Toyota interiors at this time, very, very strong, very durable, but they're not super nice to touch. I like Toyota wheels of this time frame, but the overall styling isn't that good, especially with this nasty faux wood. Ugh, that's quite nasty stuff. The leather seats are pretty good. Those are nice. The nicer, higher end trim ones, but most of them that I've driven are like cloth seats. They're just not that great. I would say overall the interior on this thing, out of 100 points, I'm going to go ahead and give it a probably another 20 plus a few more. I'll give it a 25. And that's only because I do like the steering wheel and the leather is quite nice. But overall, not that good of an interior, not pretty to look at, not super fun to touch. Now the exterior, I think I could give it a little bit more panache. Okay, let's take interior out of the scoring here. So here we go. We have our Toyota Sequoia. I like the little V8 badge. I like the overall aesthetic of the truck. It is obviously an SUV, so you got to work with those kind of parameters. But in order to make something that big, that large, that boxy look pretty good, I think Toyota did a pretty good job with these. Overall, I like them. I'm going to go ahead and give this a pretty decent score for the exterior overall aesthetic of the vehicle. I'm going to go ahead and give this thing a solid 50. Middle of the pack. I think that's fair. It's not as good looking as an exotic car or anything like that, but for a truck, it doesn't look ugly and it doesn't look, it's not a head turner, but it's not ugly. It's just a decent, average, everyday SUV. It's decent. And as far as these big ones go, I think the first generation Sequoia is one of the better looking ones out there. Alright, so let's head over and check out our next thing, transmission. So we're going to head over to Wikipedia. So the way that these work on this scoring is transmission is 50 points for having a stick shift option. Why? I prefer stick shift. That's why. 10 points for every automatic offered, and 25 points for any additional stick shift option. So we're going to be using Wikipedia here to get this information. It's my trusted source for this. We have 2 automatic transmissions, a 4-speed and a 5-speed. So that's going to give us a total of 20 points for the transmission. Could be worse, could be 10. Okay, so X Factor bonus. This is the fun one, guys. This is the one where we get to really kind of just give our own extra thoughts on the truck overall. So I think this thing deserves a few extra points. We're going to give it 10 points for color combinations. These things come in some cool colors. They're not just white, gray, and black. Okay, we got cool blue colors, we got cool green colors. They come in some really nice reds. Overall, I think these trucks have really cool colors. I'm going to also give it a little bit of extra points for its 4x4 ability. It's no Land Cruiser, but it's damn close. It's pretty decent off-road. I like them. I like the ground clearance. I like that they can tow. We'll give it a few more points for that. And I just think that the overall Toyota reliability, the iForce V8, such a strong engine. These things have great transmissions. They're super duper reliable. These things are known to go well north of 200K. You see them out there on dealer lots all the time with high mileage, and they usually look good too. They just hold up well. So I think overall I'm going to give this thing extra points for all of that stuff. Color, reliability, towing, 4x4, reliability. There's a couple of great X Factor points here. I almost feel I should subtract some points for Toyota tax because of how much they demand on the used car market, but I don't subtract points. That's not how the game goes. So we're going to go ahead and give it 10 for color. See this color, towing, reliability, 4x4. It's 40 points. 40 additional points. Okay, so let's get our grand total going here. So our final findings are car number 522, the 2001 to 2007 Toyota Sequoia. It is first generation, and here is our final score. My guess was 510. I thought it'd be slightly above average, but the survey comes in. We are down on power overall. Of course, this is very hard to max because you have to have a super high horsepower engine. I just felt that the high horsepower engines do deserve some extra points for that. That's why it's designed this way. But with it being an average family cruiser V8, we have some pretty low rankings there. Decent 0 to 60s, not bad, really not bad. And rarity, not rare at all. Handling, big truck. Interior, ugly and not that good. Exterior, quite good for a truck. Transmission, only 2 automatics. X Factor, 40 extra points. And our total is 317. Way off the mark of what I thought it was going to be, but that's okay. Let's head on to our next one. Let's move on to the next one. Let's find out what it's going to be. Okie dokie. Survey says, or magic wheel says, car number 375. Let's go check it out. What do we get? 375. Hopefully something cool. The Nissan Altima first generation. Not a cool car. At least I don't think it is, but that's okay.
We believe when you buy a new car, the last thing you should buy is the car. A new Nissan Altima, built for the human race.
Let's see what happens. Alright, let's bring up our nifty Wikipedia here. The first generation Nissan Altima, the U13 as it's called. This is going to be the car we're going to be taking a look at. So I'm going to go ahead and put it in the spreadsheet. So we have our Nissan Altima in our sheet, car number 375, 93 to 97, Altima Generation 1, chassis code U13, confidence level 2 on this one. And my guess, which I think will be much closer than I was on the Toyota, is 250 points is what I thought initially this thing would get. Okay, let's get into this whole thing. So first thing, as always, we're going to be looking at horsepower, baby. Let's go. Okay, so we have a couple different engine options here. Or no, we don't. We have one, the K24DE. That's it. This should be the single cam on this one. Oh, it was cam at 93, so maybe it's dual cam. I honestly do not remember. Either way, that's the only engine we have. It has 150 horsepower. That's not a lot. Okay, so that's going to be 15 and 15. Not so hot. Oh, 1993 to 1997, which means we have 2 here. But I guess that is what it is on this one. Okay, so let's go ahead and put those into our calculator. For our slower time, we are getting 54 points, a little bit less than the Sequoia, but for our lower, faster time, we're going to get 60 whole points, just a little bit faster than the Sequoia. So if you're in a Sequoia and you get in a drag race with an Ultima, there's a chance you will lose. Okay, so next thing we're going to be looking up is rarity, which is always the one that's the trickiest to get your numbers for, so let's go ahead and look them up. After doing some internet sleuthing as I do for these, the rarity is 0. Obviously, we kind of saw that coming, but I had to verify. They sold roughly 700,000 of these cars, which is obviously what you'd expect. So, and you know, I did a little extra research. I really thought these things had a V6 option. Apparently they didn't. They just never got one for the Ultima. So let's go into handling, interior and exterior, the ones that are entirely my own opinion. Okay, so handling these cars, not good. Front wheel drive, pretty poor brakes, pretty poor suspension design. Overall, the car isn't that good. It does handle better than a Sequoia, but that's not saying a lot. So we're going to go ahead and give it a solid 25 points for that one. And interior and exterior. Of course, let's pull up our search here. Okay, so we have our interior of the first generation Ultima, and quite frankly, it's pretty good. For a 90s economy car, and there's really not a lot you can complain. This is a more basic one. You got cloth seats, pretty basic interior, and this is the more upscale one. This is a leather package, faux wood trim, all that kind of thing. Overall, I think for this car, for this price point, it's pretty good. But we have to compare it to all cars across the board. So I'm going to go ahead and give it a solid 30 points on interior. I think that's fair. It is still an economy car. The materials still aren't that good. The overall feel of these cars is cheap. They feel cheap. Everything feels kind of like it's falling apart automatically, just right out of the box. So they're not that great. Exterior, I don't think it is going to do as good here. The exterior of these cars is not much to look at. That is your basic 90s economy car. It's borderline ugly, but not super ugly. So we're going to go ahead and give it, I'm going to say, I think 20 points is fair for the exterior on this car. Transmission, so we have a manual and an automatic options for a total of 60 points there. And they don't really have good color options. It's nice that you get kind of a leather and a more upscale one. Maybe we could give a few points for that. But realistically, I don't know that these really have an X factor. Small engine, kind of slow. KA24 is good, but most I could give this thing for an X factor bonus is the fact that there's at least an upscale version one, so I think I'm only going to give it 5 points for that. I think that's all we can afford to give here. It's just not that good of a car. Alright, let's do some maths. With our first generation Nissan Altima car number 375, 93 to 97, U13 chassis code, confidence level 2. Power, the K24 is only so powerful, 150 horsepower, gives us 15 points across the board there. 0 to 60, not bad for a car. It's a small economy car, a little bit faster than a Sequoia on the high end, so watch out those Sequoia owners. Red light Grand Prix, you might lose to a 90s Altima. Big Altima energy is strong. Rarity 0, over 700,000 made. Handling 25, front wheel drive, economy car suspension, bad brakes. Interior 30, there was a little bit of an upscale on that one, but not quite enough to get all the points. Exterior is a 20, it's not a very good looking car at all. Transmission 60 points, not bad. And X Factor just isn't one for these, they're just not that cool. And 284 is the final points for this one, and as it turns out, I was quite close at 250 for our guess, and that's going to do it for the first generation Nissan Altima, coming up behind the Toyota Sequoia, but because it's only the second car that's ever been ranked, it is number 2 in the listings for now. For how long? Probably not very. But let's find out what our next car is going to be. I did adjust my microphone down a little bit because it sounded a little peaky, so if you have to adjust the volume on whatever you're watching this on, I apologize ahead of time, but I'm just trying to make it nice for everyone. Okay, let's get to our next car. Alright, spinning wheels, show us what you have, give us a good one. No more Altimas, please. And we get number 175. Let's check our trusty list. 175 is... oh, the Ford Transit 4th generation. Man, we're not going to get any good ones on this one, I don't think. That's okay. Okay, so off to Wikipedia we go with the 4th generation Ford Transit van. So let's go ahead and put this baby into our sheet. We have our Ford Transit put in here. It's car number 175. We're talking about the 4th generation Transit. It's 2014 to now. And it's number 3 confidence level because I drive one of these at work, so I drive them a lot. I spend a lot of time around these little bucket of bolts. So off to Wikipedia we go. Let's look at some engine options. Now this is going to be more of a global engine thing here, just because of the scale in which these vans are sold. So we have lots and lots and lots and lots of different stuff here. This is the lowest grade engine available in China. Okay, so we have 168 horsepower listed here, so we're going to go ahead and put that into our sheet on the low power side. 16.8 points. And okay, so I guessed 121 total for this initially, so let's see how we do on that. I think the engines are going to hurt it quite severely, which is okay. And then the highest one would be the 3.5 liter EcoBoost V6 available in North America, and that engine, I think I just saw it listed here with a horsepower number in the main page. Powertrain, the 3.7 liter V6, 275 horsepower, 310 horsepower for the 3.5 liter twin turbo EcoBoost V6. Okay, so 310, that's a pretty good rating. That's really good, actually. That's 31 pointolinos for the twin turbo V6 3.5 liter EcoBoost. Okay, let's head over to 0 to 60 and get some 0 to 60 times. Down here in the bottom of our 0 to 60 times list, we have the 2014 to current Ford Transit van. Okay, so our slowest time looks to be our 12.5 diesel high roof here, which would make sense being a diesel. So let's go ahead and do the math on that one and put it in our list. Bring up the calculator so you can see how this is done. So you're going to take 20 minus 12.5, enter. And you're going to take that and you're going to go ahead and multiply by 5, and 37.5 points is the listing for the diesel. So the lowest time here is with the EcoBoost 6.7. It's the fastest, which is pretty darn fast for a van, a cargo van no less. 66.5 points there on the fast 0 to 60 EcoBoost time. Rarity, I don't even have to look at the numbers. No, this is a straight 0. They made a lot of these, a lot of them. They're everywhere, and in order to max points, you have to have less than 1,000 made. In order to have 0 points, you have to have made over 100,000, and there are certainly more than 100,000 for Transit's probably in California alone, let alone the rest of the world. Handling. All right, subjective scoring time, which can be fun, but overall it's quite poor, I would say. It's very top heavy, as you can imagine. The long wheelbase and the short wheelbase versions don't really make a difference. It's just not that good. It's cargo van. What are you doing? Interior. Let's bring up some interiors for you guys. As you can see, not much to look at. First of all, it's a cargo van. Some of them have seats, some of them have nothing. Like this one here. So basically, you're only looking at this section as you're driving one of these most of the time. The rest of them are like almost bus seats. They're in the back seated versions. And as you can see, there isn't a lot to look at here. It's pretty bare bones. You have some cup holders, you have the shifter, steering wheel. The one I have at work doesn't even have like Bluetooth. It's not good. I'm gonna go ahead and give this a very low scoring on interior. I'm gonna give it another 10 on the interior and exterior of these transits. As you can see, they're not much to look at. It's a cargo van. It's not impressive in any way, shape, or form as far as the exterior goes. So I think what we're going to go ahead and do that is give it a... It's not butt ugly. I can't really give it a 1, can I? A 10 again. We'll give it a 10. I think as far as cargo vans go, there are worse, and as far as cars go, there are worse. So it's not as bad as it could be. Transmission. The Ford could make up some points here with having a lot of transmission options. Let's see. We have a 6-speed auto, a 6-speed manual, a 5-speed manual, and the electric automatic, and a 10-speed automatic. So the first manual is going to be 50 points. The second one makes it 75, plus 3 automatics is another 30. So that's going to be 105 points, breaking the barrier. 105. Well done, Ford Transit. On automatic and manual transmission options. Okay, X Factor bonus. It's hard to give a cargo van extra points, but there are, if I remember right, I heard at one time, there are over 1 million different combinations of options you can get on these vans. I think that's worth something. We'll give it some 10 points for just the vast number of options in which this van can be configured. I think the way that this van basically drives is quite sprightly. It's kind of quick for what it is. So I think I'll give it a few points for that, and I think I'll give it a few points for the top. The high top versions have this cool cargo space up here to put things in, which I think is neat. And overall, I just think it's vast numbers. You know, they have one for everything of these vans. So I think overall, I'm going to give it a solid 20 extra X Factor points, just for the fact that if you can dream it, it exists on these vans. Okay, let's clean it up, color up the sheet, and go ahead and get us some final tallies. Alright, final rankings for the Ford Transit. It's car number 175 that made it from 2014 to now. Still exists out there in the wild, 4th generation, confidence level 3, I drive one all the time, and my guess was 121. We fell short with 296.8, beating out the Nissan Altima, but not beating the Toyota Sequoia. Now, low power was part of the ring, but again, it's pretty much impossible to max this. And basically, the way it works out is it did have more power than the Sequoia in a V6, and it had more power than the Nissan did out of the KA. Now, we did have some greens on this one. The first car on the board to have some greens, which means it was above 66. We had it on the low 0 to 60 with a 3.5 or whatever that is, the EcoBoost twin turbo V6 as it were. And of course, the max amount of transmission options made it bust the 100 points here, so doing very well, which gave it good points overall, but not enough to edge out the Toyota. The Toyota just had nice medium points across the board for the most part, with only a couple of low spots. So it's bringing up number 2 position out of the 3 cars we've done. Let's move on to the next one. Car number 4. All right, let's see what we got. The wheel tells us all we need to know, and it's going to be 278. Okay, fantastic. Let's find out what that is. $278, the first generation Jeep Grand Cherokee. Wow, finally got a good one. Well, at least good in my opinion. Alright, so this is going to be the ZJ model. Let's go ahead and put it in our spreadsheet. We have our Jeep Grand Cherokee ZJ, and I have a lot of experience with these. I've driven a lot of them, I've owned a few of them, and I've worked on a lot of them, so I have a lot to say on this little guy. let's take a look at our sheet so far. Here we have what we're working with here. Car number 278, 1993 to 1998. Jeep Grand Cherokee Generation 1 ZJ Confidence Level 3. Let's see if we can beat the Sequoia, which is currently number 1. Okay, so horsepower high and horsepower low. This has 2 engine options. You have the 4-liter 6 and the V8. And of course, in some other countries, you have some even stranger engines. So here's our engine options. Our most powerful one is going to be the 5.9 liter Magnum, and the least is the diesel. Let's go ahead and look up the horsepowers. We have 230 horsepower for the 5.9 liter LA Block Magnum. That's pretty decent there. So it's going to be 23 points on the high side for the pushrod V8, and for the low side it is not as good. It is 114 horsepower for the low side, 114 horsepower for the small 2.5 liter diesel. So that's going to be 11.4. So my guess for this particular vehicle was going to be 290 points initially. I'm going to find that these guesses are terribly wrong as we go through. That's okay. Okay, let's get some 0 to 60 times. Here we have our 0 to 60 times. Our fastest time is the 6.7 out of the 5.9 liter Magnum V8. It's a 360 cubic inch motor. So we're going to do some math on that one in a second, and then we're also going to do some math for this slower quarter mile time, which it doesn't really say what this is. It just says limited 4x4. It could be the 4-liter version, but we're going to take this because it is the slowest. Actually, this one is the slowest, isn't it? 9.7 for this Laredo 4x4, which is probably the 4-liter version, but it's the slowest time we have to work with here, so we're going to go ahead and do the maths. Okay, so we have our 0 to 60 time on the high end, which means the slower version. It is still not too bad. It's a little faster than our little Ford Transit van with its smallest engine, but not by well, I guess by a fair margin, but competitive-ish to the other 2 cars we've done today, the Sequoia and the Nissan. The higher end 5.9 liter 360 pushrod LA V8 66.5, tying with the Transit's 3.5 liter twin turbo EcoBoost. So that's pretty darn good. Big old pushrod V8 there. Rarity. It's a 0, folks. They made well over 100,000 of these. There are tons and tons and tons of ZJs out there. Nothing exciting there. So let's get into our subjective choices. Handling. It's a 4x4 Jeep. It doesn't handle good. The Cherokee, the basic one, handles better. I don't think the Grand Cherokee handles nearly as well. So for the handling portion of this, it isn't transit bad, but it's worse than a Sequoia, and definitely worse than the Altima. So we're gonna say I'm gonna say an 18 on this here. It is just not that good, you know. It's got drum brakes. Okay. We're starting with the exterior here. We have, because it is a ZJ, that's I use that name, but it's mostly well known with enthusiasts, so there's a few like renderings and strange things in this image search. But overall, the exterior of this I think is pretty good. Here's the 5.9 liter Magnum V8 version of the truck. You have these high-end limited ones and the most basic little Laredo with those little star wheels. I would say overall these are pretty good looking trucks when they're all trimmed out. So overall, I think I'm going to give this truck 45 points for the exterior. It's pretty good. Not as good as Sequoia, I would argue, but still pretty good. And let's go look at the interior of these, which is pretty good for the time, for sure, especially on the higher end ones. They did a facelift, so these are the early ones here with the cloth seats. Not good. If they stuck with this interior the whole time, this truck would have gotten very, very small points, low points for that interior. It's very cheap and very bad. But the high-end ones, especially with the two-tone interiors, the faux wood, the high leather, power everything. The wood doesn't look cheap, not as cheap as some of the other brands. It's still kind of cheap looking, but the gauges are nice. The steering wheel gets a little bit of an upgrade, still not great. Overall, I would say if they had the high interior the whole time, I would give this truck 50 points. If they had the low interior this whole time, I would give the truck 20 points. So let's split the difference and say 35, I think, is fair for this truck on the interior side. It is extremely comfortable. Extremely comfortable. But the early interiors, I think, let it down quite a bit. And it's still not quite luxury car wise. So I'm going to say 35, which is the highest of the days and the highest of the list so far. Transmissions. Jeep had quite a few of them, so let's go ahead and look at the transmissions for this. Oh, geez. Okay. Transmissions. So we have the one manual transmission that they only made for a little bit of time, basically, and only with the 4-liter, but still, it was available, so that's 50 points. And then you have an army of automatics. That's 50, 60, 70, 80, 90, 100 points for all the different 4 speeds you can get. And with that, that brings us to the X Factor bonus. Now, much like the Sequoia, there's a lot to say about these. First thing is first, the trims. These things have a lot of cool trims. You have the performance variant, and you have the high-end luxury versions of the truck, and all different kinds of cool wheel combinations and stuff like that. So I think for the trims, we're going to give it 10 points. These things come in some really great colors, like the Sequoia. They have these greens and reds and blues and all different kinds of stuff like that. So we're going to go ahead and give it 10 more points. That's 20 for the paint colors that are options here. It has good 4x4 ability, just like the Sequoia. So that's another 10. That's going to be 30. And we'll give it 40 for towing, just like the Sequoia. It can tow, and not quite as well as the Sequoia, but you know, pretty decent. And we gave the Sequoia some points for reliability, and we're going to give the Jeep points for reliability as well. The 4.0 is just a bulletproof combination, so 50 points were there. And then where the Jeep falls short is, I think, this body cladding's a little ugly and some other things. So I think that's really as much as I could get it for the X Factor. It's comfy, it tows, it's reliable, it's a decent truck all around, and I like Jeeps. So 50 X Factor points, I think, is fair on the Jeep Grand Cherokee ZJ. Okay, let's get some totals and color up. Okay, so I guessed 290, and as it turns out, it's 404, now leading the pack above the Sequoia and all the others. Let's take a look at how that happened. We have the 278 car number, 1993-1998 Jeep Grand Cherokee ZJ, confidence level 3, and the points work out with Power High, the high horsepower of the 5.9 liter LA V8, good points there. The smaller 2.5 liter available in Europe hurt it on the low power end, but that's okay. 0 to 60, very decent on the V8, very decent on the V8 here, and okay with presumably the 4 liter. And with rarity being 0, like all the others, handling 18 because it is a Jeep and it's not that good. Interior and exterior did okay. Transmissions really brought home a lot of different points. And you have the X Factor bonus of 50, giving it a total of 400.4. Okay, and that's going to do it for the Jeep Grand Cherokee ZJ. Let's move on to the last car for the video. Let's find out what the last car for this video is going to be. Of course, there will be more videos where we rank all the cars going through the list. Lots of videos, I hope, but for right now, let's just see what we get for this one. 99. Lovely. Let's see what it is. Number 99 is the Dodge Caravan 4th generation. Okay.
The all-new Dodge Grand Caravan, the best minivan ever.
Let's go put it in our sheet. We have our Dodge Caravan. So it should be noted that there is a difference between the Dodge Caravan and the Grand Caravan. If you can see here, the Grand Caravan is listed as the long wheelbase one, which means the Caravan is the short wheelbase one. I do have them separated in my sheet because there are some handling differences between those two, and a few other things for the higher trim ones on the other models. So we're just going to be focusing on the short wheelbase Jeep Caravan. Now this is generation 4, and probably one of the more common ones. The ones that I think a lot of people remember and were very popular, especially here in the United States. So we have it in our sheet here. The car number 99, 01 to 07, Dodge Caravan, Generation 4, confidence level 2. Okay, so let's go ahead and get into our ranking here, starting of course with horsepower. Now this car, or this van I should say, does have quite a few different engine options worldwide. We have a couple of diesels and of course some gas variants. Now I'm going to go ahead and look at the 3.8 liter because I know that's the American high power V6, and it should give us the most horsepower of any of the engines in this list, which is going to be 215 at peak. So let's go ahead and put 21.5 into our points for the high horsepower. 21.5. Okay. And then let's go ahead and bring up the next one, which is probably going to be one of those small diesels. Is our lowest power one probably this 2.5 liter diesel or this 2.4 liter inline 4? Let's look at both of them. Let's see, this one is making 161, and the inline 4 was making 150. Wow, that's really not a lot. Okay, 150 is what we're going with, so that's going to be 15 points there. Alright, now let's get our 0 to 60 times. We have a 10.0 and a 7.8 for our engine options 0 to 60 times. That one was a little bit more tricky because of the difference between Grand Caravan and Caravan. So I'm going to go ahead and do some math. So after doing some math, we have our 0 to 60 time points here. 49.5 for the smaller engine version and 61 for the 3.8 V6. And we're going to go into rarity. Now I already know they made over 100,000 of these bad boys, so we're going to go with a big old fat goose egg there. And we're going to move on to handling, interior, exterior, our subjective scoring. Now I will say, compared to the Transit, which only scored a 10 here, the Grand Caravan is far better handling, and I actually have some fond memories of driving these vans spiritedly in my teenage years. So I'm going to go ahead and give this a little bit better of a score than the Transit. Does it handle better than a Sequoia and a Grand Cherokee? I would say so. Not by much, but yes it does. And would it handle better than an early Altima? I would say those are pretty on par. To be honest, the van is not bad. It's really not that bad. I'm going to go ahead and give it a tied score with the Altima at 25. Now let's move on to interior and exterior. Okay, so we have our interior here for the Dodge Caravan, and it's okay. There are some things that I like about them. I like the textures of the materials that Dodge used on the steering wheel and the shifter and a few other things. I like this center stack here of all your controls. It's very easy to use. I mean, they made these things easy to use on purpose. That was kind of the point. And the stow and go cargo system that some of these had was pretty neat. So overall, I would say this interior is just kind of mediocre. The materials aren't as good as the Chryslers and some of the other stuff. So I would say it's okay, but not great. So for that, we're going to go to our interior sheet. I think I'm going to give it a 22 maybe. Let's see, we gave 25 to the Sequoia. Is it better than a Sequoia? I would say it's on par with Sequoia. It's really similar to a Sequoia in terms of quality, although the Sequoia is built better. So yes, I think 22 is the correct statement here of points. And exterior, now I don't particularly think these are bad looking vans as far as vans go. It's a little egg-shaped. It's definitely a product of its time, you could say. I'm going to go ahead and give this thing exterior-wise maybe 20 points. Maybe that's not fair. That's what we gave the Altima. It's better looking than an Altima, I think. Not by a lot, but it is. Let's go with 20. 22 again. Why not? I think that's fair. Okay, so those are our subjective scoring there for those kinds of things. And let's go ahead and look at what Wikipedia states for transmission options on these minivans. According to them, they have a 5-speed manual available in Europe and 2 automatics available. That's going to be a grand total of 50, 60, 70 points on the transmission options. 70 points, not too bad. X Factor bonus. I'd like to give this van a few points here. It has fantastic color combinations. American cars of this time were really doing some cool colors. This green's cool, the midnight blue is pretty cool, red, this kind of ice blue, here's the midnight blue. These gold colors I'm not a big fan of, but the rest of the color palette, this kind of maroon, very nice. So I'm going to give it 10 points for colors for sure. I'm also going to give it at least 5 points for stow and go seating. I think that's a pretty cool idea. And I'm also going to give it 10 more points for having an RT version, which is just a silly thing to have for a van. But I think it's funny, so that's going to bring it up to 25 total points. And then, of course, you can get TVs in these things. That's worth some points, right? That's worth 5 points to get TVs in the van. I mean, that's pretty cool. So that's 30 points there total. And I think that's about it for the X Factor on these. It's just a van, you know. I gave it some points where I could. And that's the best I can do. These things have really great ride quality, but not good enough to warrant extra points, I don't think. And so that's going to do it for that one. 30 points. Let's color up and do math. For our Dodge Caravan, car number 99, 2001, 2007, that's the 4th generation. Let's see how we did. Apparently, this thing came out to 316 points with the Toyota Sequoia, barely beating it. I maybe could have been more generous and bumped it above the Sequoia, but the points are what the points are. How did it get there? Well, a couple of low engine power options were available. Decent 0 to 60s for a van. And we ultimately lost a lot of points in handling interior and exterior because it is just a mom and dad van. This was not that good. Transmission gave it a lot of extra points, but not enough. Even with the X Factor bonus points, it brought it up to an even 316. But I want to say, look at that. My guess was 320. I almost hit that one on the head. So I'm wildly off on some of them. Very close on this one. That's the law of averages, I guess. Okay, thank you for joining me on this ranked. We have 5 cars on the board currently. First place is the Jeep Grand Cherokee, followed by the Toyota Sequoia, then the Dodge Caravan, edging out the Transit and the Altima. Next episode, we will add 5 more cars to this list to see how they fare. Can the Grand Cherokee hold out on top for the next episode? We will see. 400.4 to beat. Let's go and check it out on the next one. Thank you for joining me.